Story. Tilda Ochako Pav Tilda. It's about time you get married. Mina said, grinning from ear to ear. Jiro looked lightly embarrassed and just nodded. Yeah, Kaminari and I finally proposes to one another. Both of us wanted to ask each other for a really long time apparently. Ah, all the girls responded and so did I. I still remember when Kirishima asked me to marry him. Wait, I thought you asked him. Toru said, sounding a little confused. Mina smiled. Well, yeah, I did, but then he got a little annoyed since he wanted to propose to me, like a man, and so he ended up proposing to me the next day after I proposed to him. That's a little confusing, Kiro. Mina nodded and turned back to Jiro. So how did Kaminari propose? Jiro bit her lip and her ear jacks started fidgeting with one another. She took a deep breath. Actually, Kaminari and I were sort of fighting and I asked him, if you never planned on spending your life with me, then why would you ask me to be your girlfriend? And so he shouted back, never planned on spending my life with you. Jiro, I want to spend my life with you. Why do you think I was going to ask you to marry me? Jiro stopped there as the rest of us looked in shock, minus Yaoyarozu. Honestly, that seems like something that would definitely happen, Yaoyarozu said as she drank her tea. Yeah, well, it worked out for the best, didn't it? Jiro said, smiling again as she turned to look at me. At least it isn't as corny as the time when Midoriya proposed to you. I blushed hard and shook my head. We were young adults, okay? I stated back, but everyone just keeps staring at me. You want to hear the story, don't you? I asked hesitantly and they all nodded. I took a deep breath and began. Tilda flashback to 20-year-old Ochako. I got back home pretty late after my hero internship that I had after my classes. I quietly walked. I got the apartment and looked around for a bit as I put my stuff away. Izu must be at his hero work still. I smiled and brought the groceries that I bought into the kitchen as I placed the objects in the fridge. Without a second to waste, I started cooking. Eri should be back in a while after her hangout with Koda. After a while the door opened, Eri smiling at me and started to run up as she placed her backpack down. Mommy, she said as she looked at the pot curiously, what are you cooking? Rice, I stated back. Lowering the temperature on the stove, I turned around and washed my hands and then hugged Eri. Are we having pork cutlet again? She asked. I nodded back, giggling a little. Yup. You know how your father absolutely loves it. Eri looked at me and smirked, but not as much as he loves Mama. I rolled my eyes and blushed slightly. Are you Eri? I kissed the top of her forehead. Why don't you do your homework while I finishing cooking? Eri nodded and we both went back to our normal routine. I finished the cooking and just as I finished setting up the meal on the dining table, the door opened. Papa, I heard Eri shout as she abandoned her homework on the table and ran to the sound of a chuckle. Hi, sweetie, Izu said, and I hear him footsteps coming closer and closer. I looked up as my heart beat as I saw him staring at me. Hi, Ochako, he stated. Promoted stories. You'll also like The Ultimate Roleplay. 1.2K107. This is sorta like my roleplay book, but bigger, crazier, and better. So, this is for all Sonic characters. All versions of canon characters are able to join. Sonic Ma. The Candian Aristocrats. 283K26.4K and Quad. And Quad. Rain adopted. 114K 3.2K. This is an adopted story from at M_Spriggs titled Rain, that I will be adding onto. Quirkless. One day, as Ochako Uraraka walked back to Ua, she found herself caught in Making You Laugh. 5.4K 169. From asking a million times, Miss Joke has finally got a clear yes from Aizawa, and it's all thanks to the adorable Eri. Out of time. 20.8K 503. The world was left in chaos after AFO killed last wielder of One for All. Siblings Hiroaki and Reiko are sent to warn their parents of an impending disaster. The Pro. A Villain's Bright Side Izuku x Ochako. 178K 3.3K in quad. I've never met someone like you, but I'm glad I did in quad. And quad, pray you'll have a quirk in your next life, and take a swan dive off the roof. And quad. And so Izuku D, her savior. 1.2M 173K. Yadavanshi series number 3. It is a book under Yadavanshi series. But it could be read as standalone too. Nitya Raghavendra is a Telugu businesswoman earning millions, but her A. Hi Izu, I said and looked at his tired face. It's dinner time, I said and looked at Eri. Eri immediately nodded and took out her homework away. We all sat down and ate together as we talked about Eri's day at school, and each other's internship. After eating Eri brushed her teeth, washed her dishes, and went to sleep as it was getting late. Izu helped me wash the dishes I cooked with and after that we got ready to go to sleep. Izu, I said as I looked at him. He turned around, sat down on the bed and looked at me. Yeah. Why are you pushing yourself so hard? You know you don't have to take classes since you already have hero work, so I don't understand why you. Izu grabbed my hand and sighed. Ochako, I want to do this, beside I'm fine. I bit my lip. Izuku Midoriya, I barely get to see you. I stated softly and he looked surprised. My internship and classes overlap with you hero work and classes. We only get to see each other on the weekends and even then we have to use that time to be with Eri. Don't get me wrong, I love Eri, but I don't like how the only reason I got to see you today is because I got off early. Izu nodded and touched my face. I'm sorry Ochako, he said softly. He got closer to me and hugged me tightly, moving the strands of hair away from my forehead so that he could kiss it. Okako, do you remember what I said during our graduation at UA? I looked at him with curiosity, but he just smiled at me. Graduation. W got accepted to the same university, getting an apartment together with Eri. You got hero work, I said confused. Izu chuckled. You don't remember? He said, watching me. I shook my head. What is it? Izu kissed my hand as he began saying, that I would salta be with you no matter what, he said. I blushed a bit at the sudden gesture, but I still looked at him with a confused gaze. Izu watched my expression and he blushed a bit as well, and he seemed to get so nervous all of a sudden. You're gonna make me say it, aren't you? He said as her ears got red. Say what, Izu? I asked back, getting a bit nervous as well. What is he going to say that's making him so nervous? Izu looked at me, sighed, and then took a deep breath as he flushed red. Let's get married, Ochako. Suddenly my memory seemed to flash back in flashback during graduation. Let's get married, Ochako, Izuku said to me with a shy stare and a blush that accompanied it. I giggled back at him and blushed a little at how cute he was, like Mina and Kirishima. Izu just nodded and I grabbed his hand. Sure, let's get married one day, I stated back happily, and I hugged Izu. Back to flashback of the proposal day. My face flushed completely red as I got embarrassed with the memory. Wait, you were serious? I said, shocked. Izu laughed a little and he scratched the back of his head. That wasn't the answer I was expecting, he said and blushed a bit. Oh, alright, I said, remembering that the love of my life just proposed to me. Yes, let's get married, Izu. Izu smiled at me and hugged me tightly. I promised to make more time for us. He pulled back and rested his forehead against mine. I love you, Ochako Uraraka, he said breathlessly. I chuckled back and looked at him as I leaned and I kissed him softly, and he returned the kiss just the same. My heart was beating rapidly and I felt Izu's nervousness as he fidgeted with my hand as he tried to hold it. He's still the shy Izu that I fell in love with. I blushed and smiled at Izu's shyness to kiss me. Izu looked at me with a bright pink shade on his face and he looked away trying to cover his blush with his other hand. Midoriya, I said softly and Izu immediately turned to look at me. I haven't called him by his last name since, forever. Izu watched me with a panicked look on his face. What? He said still flustered from the kiss. Midoriya, I said again and I giggled at Izu. My name's Ochako Midoriya, I stated as I watched Izu's face turn into one of confusion, relief, then back to confusion and finally ended at embraced. Ochako M. Midoriya, he said softly. Tilda back to the present Tilda. Ah, all the girls said with a smile on their faces. You guys are the cutest. Thanks Hagakuri, I stated but then shook my head. Am I allowed to still call you that or? Yeah, it's fine. I know it's a bit confusing with Oji in the last name, so you can still call me Hagakuri if you want. I nodded. Wait, what about the ring? Mina asked. I blushed. Izu wanted to make sure I got an engagement ring that I would like, so he wanted me to go buy the ring with him. In the end, we just went with a simple golden band ring since I didn't want to spend money, and Izu insisted that if I didn't spend money on the engagement ring, that he would spend money on my wedding ring instead. Surprisingly though, we didn't actually get married until late on because with all the craziness that was going on at the time, so I guess Izu kinda proposed to me twice. The girls just started at me and smiled. You guys are adorable. I rolled my eyes. Jiro, shouldn't you be planning your wedding? I said glancing at Mina. Oh right. Jiro said inside, can you guys help me? We all agreed and the rest of the girls left quietly to help Jiro in the living room, however Sue and I stayed behind. I got up slowly and Sue smiled at me as she refilled my glass of water. I drank some and smiled back at Sue, who looked concerned. Don't you think we should tell our friends, Kiro? I shook my head. Sue, I can't. Jiro is getting married and I don't want to take the spotlight from her. Sue sighed. What about Midoriya? Does he know Kiro? I shook my head once again. No. He has too much hero work to do now that he is the number one hero, and I don't want to put more pressure on him, especially with Aries' homecoming dance coming soon. Sue just stared at me and shook her head. Ochako-chan, you are almost 2 months in. People are going to notice sooner or later, Kiro. I smiled back sadly. I know, I said as I touched my stomach. Now enough about me. We have a wedding to plan, I said and turned to Sue and I walked into the living room. Blank underscore super long chapter. So for not updating, I just got lazy, as per usual. I'll try to update as soon as I can or want to, so yeah. As always, there will be mistakes, so sorry about that. Anyways, I hope you guys are doing great and stay safe, everyone. Tilda, the final night fury. Edit. I fixed a big mistake and I am disappointed in myself. Tears of joy. That's all. Cold sweat smile, tears of joy.